This will be a little bit obscure of a video. Before I begin, I'd like to apologize for my continued hubris within my channel. I'd like to apologize for my hubris, for my aggression. I've been wrong a lot, and please forgive me because I'm still learning. I just wanted to say a small piece on Mary and some of the interesting ways that Mary has been sewn into our everyday lives. And I'd also like to speak to the phonetic symbolism that is often lost in our study of symbology. I'll have more to say on this, but I'd like to say something short and sweet and significant here today. Because Mary, Mother Mary, a lot of people feel a lot of ways about her. And I'd just like to show the way, they say time heals all wounds. But time also, what do they say? You know the tree by its fruit. Time heals all wounds, and time bears all fruits. In phonetic symbolism, most poignantly, phoneticism, which is a fancy way of saying the way things sound, versus diction, what things mean, versus spelling, the way things are spelt with specific characters. The Phoenician of Phoenicians, one could say, is Pythagoras. Who is attributed with the Pythagorean theorem. Even though Pythagoras wasn't necessarily the inceptor or the originator of the 3-4-5 triangle, it's been attributed to him. Why? Another story for another time. I've touched on it before. But phonetic symbolism is really easy. So if we're to say Mary, M-A-R-Y, and Mary, M-E-R-R-Y, I've certainly touched on this before. If we're to say those two different things, yes, they're two different things, but they're also the same thing. Now, within the etymology, which they say means the way in which the word that means what it means came to be, right? The etymology, the philology of a word. How it came to be, how it came to mean what it means. So far as the religion goes, Mary means rebellion. Mary means bitter waters. Mary means the sea of sorrow. But for instance, bitter waters actually really has two meanings. Well, it has more than that. But bitter can mean like bitter. Bittered. Embittered. Bitter water. But also bitters. Healing bitters. Dandelion. So bitter. So healing. We might wonder why the dandelion is called the dandy, the happy lion, and why its leaves are so healing and so bitter. Bitter to the taste. Yuck! Yet regenerates the body that holds the spirit, that holds the soul held in eternity. I don't want to make this long, so give me a moment to get back to where I'm getting to. Mary Mother, Merry Christmas, happy, Mary, happy, Mary, Mary, joy, Merry Christmas, Mary, Merry, happy, Christmas, the day, Mary, Mary, Mary Mother of Christ, Mass, Mary at the feet of God, in flesh. That's not all I was getting to. What was I getting to? How deep is Mary in our lives? When God was born, God wept with his mother. When God was born, God wept for God's pain, and Mary wept for her pain until God was born, and then Mary wept for the love of her child, God. And at the end, Jesus wept. Call him whatever you want. Yosef, Yeshu, Yeshua. And call her whatever you want. Mary, Mira, Miriam, Miriamin, Mira, Myrriahna. They wept together, mother and child, at his birth, and they wept together at his death, mother and child, eye to eye, face to face. What was the first thing Jesus looked upon in life? Mary. And from eternity, what did Jesus look upon? Mary. Before Jesus was born, what did God look upon to come to and to come through? Mary. And in tears, those perfect little lenses of salt water. Or, more specifically, not the fresh water, not the salt water. In the beginning, right, close to the beginning, God separated the water from the waters, the fresh water, the salt water. Our blood is estuarian water. Our blood has the salinity of estuaries. Our blood is not of the fresh water. Our blood is not of the salt water. Our blood is at the focal point of an estuary. If an estuary is a parabola, our blood is the focal point of salinity. Physically, mathematically, symbolically, chemically, biologically. Could that be a seed? Unified theory of mythos? I'm not going to lie to you, even though it's coming out of these dirty lips, it's the best one I've heard. Deprived of other banquet, I ate myself. Their shared tears were the lenses, the prisms, the light benders between the Alpha and the Omega. Superluminal light, A lot of people harsh on Mary. Catholics have done a fantastic job. Not only Catholics, but the Orthodox, the Eastern Orthodox, the Russian Orthodox, for that matter, the Byzantine Catholic Orthodox have done a fantastic, beautiful, miraculous job of holding up Mary. Not only that, even Islam. And Islam informs Mary so much, especially in her relation with Zechariah. I'll say this. I've been confused for years, and I made a video way back. I couldn't reference it now. I've already made more videos than I can wrap my own mind around. But long ago I harshed on the Gospel of Thomas because at the end of what it says about women. Now I realize that Thomas said that, not speaking the truth, but speaking pragmatically. It's the same way Lincoln spoke. It's the same way Grant spoke when they were speaking officially. Now we don't know what Grant whispered into his wife's ear. We don't know what Washington whispered into his wife's ear. We don't know what Martin Luther King whispered into his wife's ear. We just know what they said in public. You don't know what I whisper. You only know what I say. But when I whisper, to the Most High. I know the Most High knows what I know. And I know most of you don't. Not because I'm better or know more. Because we share a vernacular. Anyway, what I wanted to say was, at the end of the Gospel of Thomas, which is apocryphal, and a lot of people harsh on apocryphal. The reason why the Bible was compressed as a book and called the Word of God, the Bible is a pragmatic truth of God. It's not the eternal, perfect, absolute end of story. It's certainly not the end of story because of the one hanging diphthong, Hagar or Hajar. It's Hagar, Hajar is the unresolved point of the Bible, the Holy Bible, the Old and New Testament. And it's yet to be resolved. The covenant was made with Abraham. The covenant was made with Abraham. If you're into this, if you're not into this kind of thing, fine. The truth is also elsewhere, but this truth reigns. Abram, Sarah, Selah, Hagar, Hajar, Abram, like that truth basically covers 2/3 of the world, and it's in conflict. The quote-unquote Holy Bible kind of, sort of, resolves about 2/3 of it. Islam and Judaism well, I guess maybe it's more like half and half. Because, and this is just for people who are into it, Judeo-Christianity is not Abrahamic. It's, what would you call it? Jacobian? Israel? Israel does not encompass all of Abram and Abraham, who God made the covenant with. The Bible does not reconcile Hagar and Ishmael. The proof is in the pudding, you know. Time sorts things out. If you're Jewish or Christian and you're against Islam, well, then the question to you is, resolve Hagar and Ishmael. And if you're Islamic, the question to you is, well, resolve Sarah and Isaac. Anyway, to go back to what I was saying to before, is that, you know, you find resolution in strange places, and I was basically, because I'm a Thomas, I'm a doubter. Faith and doubt go hand in hand. Don't let the left hand know what the right hand. Faith and doubt go hand in hand. Faith is not belief. I have faith. I have faith. I have faith. Fidelity. The infidels. Fidelity. Well, phi. 1 plus or minus root 5 over 2. Delta 3 triangle. 1 plus or minus root 3 over 2, or 1 plus or minus I root 3 over 2. Same thing, kind of. Fidelity. All wrapped up in root 5 and root 3. And ty. If we can't stand back from all of that, from a God's eye perspective, and the proof over time is that, what is the proof that God really did make the covenant with Abraham? What's the proof? 2/3 of the world, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years later, give or take, 2, 3, 4, 5,000 years later, is wrapped up in that. Unfortunately, I don't have enough knowledge of the East to say much about the East and the role of the East. Except for the fact, and this sounds racist, but we got to get over it and just be honest. Truth and reconciliation. Not like, you're racist, you're a piece of shit, blah, blah, blah. It's like, we're all racist. We're all prejudiced. We could learn to have a curiosity about that instead of a hatred about it. And I'll just say, I've said it before, but one of my favorite figures of all time is Sejong the Great, who had a harem. I personally don't favor harems, but I can see in certain times and places where they made sense. Especially in places where women are subject to butchery, including today. There's a reason why there's not enough women in China today. Chinese people don't value women. You can split it any which way to Sunday. But the bottom line is, they say there aren't enough women in China because too many women have abortions. Not recognizing that most of those little girls who aren't were born and left by the riverside. That's an impossibly horrific truth. And that's today. Today. And if I don't find a way to make an impact on that, not with hate, not with condemnation, like, how could you? Here's the thing, because I've spoken out about it before, and I am glad for the idea that, abortion is railed against, but I'm also a little, God is a pragmatist. but also God is an idealist. Why do these bad things happen? Because our free will is so powerful and we choose incorrectly. And when we see a wrong and we force our free will upon it, instead of forgiveness and outpourings of love. Now, trust me, I'm speaking to myself. But I'm also trying to say something. Here's my argument, quote unquote, for abortion. I mean, I'm really on the, I'm walking the line on this one. Because there's the difference between, because there's the separation between church and state. And that's a good thing. Because history has proven that when church and state are connected, everything goes to shit. Why? I'll leave that up to you. But you're not going to make a better world solely by making abortion legal. And I guess here's my argument. Now, since this whole Roe versus Wade thing got turned over, I'm more and more coming along to the side of like, yeah, abortion's wrong. We shouldn't do it. Like I'm getting that more and more. But at the same time, we've heard this before, and this is never argued. This is never argued. Please enter this philosophical realm with me. This realm of prayer. We are now in a heavenly realm. Not heaven, heavenly realm. We war against principalities in heavenly realms. What's that mean? Where's heaven? Is heaven in heavenly realms? Well, heaven is the heaven of heavenly realms. The heavenly realm of heavenly realms is heaven. Yet, there are wars in heavenly realms. So heaven is in the center of this whirlwind of war, because we often think of heaven, earth, hell. That's not how it is. We think of hell down here, heaven's here, kind of in the center, because the war in heavenly realms is raging, and heaven just holds on in the center, while hell is at the periphery, and earth is outside it. It's another way of thinking about it. It wouldn't take a genius to mathematically transform that from the way we normally think about it. We're told the story of during the Holocaust, and in many movies and in literature, this has been sussed out. Sussed out. That Jews hid, in basements, below the floorboards. That's the story. I think it's in Schindler's List. I think also in Inglourious Bastards. Maybe not, but that's what I'm thinking of at the moment. And other things. But in cultural mythology, it's often enough stated that in the Holocaust, when groups of Jews were hiding in a place where German soldiers were looking for Jews, if a baby cried, the mother would put her hand over the mouth of the baby, and the baby would die. The mother would put her hand over the mouth of the baby, and the baby would die. To save herself and all her brothers and sisters. The baby died. This is commonly accepted amongst people who are more or less pro-life, right? Now, again, to me this is an incredibly difficult subject because my whole life until I was about 19, I was pro-life. Then after 19, I was because I had friends who had abortions, specifically 3 friends. 2 of them, well, from the time of 19 to 23, I had 3 friends in particular who had abortions. 2 of them, to my mind, it pretty much ruined their life. Well, I should say, one of them, it ruined a lot of her life, but I think she's okay now. Another one, it ruined her life, and I think she's still ruined. And another one, she dealt with it stoically, and now has a fine family. A good husband, great children, so far as I know. Anyway, among people who are pro-life and among people who are pro-choice, the sacrifice of that mother in the Holocaust who had to suffocate her child is great. But it's respected. It's universally respected. Nowhere is there a voice calling, "You cowards, you 30 or 40 beneath the rafters." Now that child was dead anyway. As soon as that child cried, how do you know that wasn't the clarion cry? How do you know? How do you know that wasn't the clarion cry? To rise up out of that basement, face your fate and face your death. You put that child down on the dirt, in the manger, in the dirty barn. When that child starts crying, because presumably there were 30, 40 in the basement, under the floorboards hiding, and the child never cried. And the Germans came and went. I'm sorry, the Nazis came and went. No disparaging to Germany as a whole. The Nazis came and went. Everybody was fine. At least that day. But then we say, well, that's the sacrifice. The sacrifices people had to make, like killing their own child to keep everybody safe. I guess what I'm saying, logically and spiritually, that's the same thing as abortion. I understand some people use abortion as contraception. I think it's less than people think, but the idea of abortion from a compassion standpoint, from a religious compassion standpoint, is the same thing as the mother who suffocates her crying child to save the 30 or 40 around her. when a mother who was ill-equipped, when a mother who was dying in her own life already with dying people all around her. And there are communities that are like that. A lot of them. Even this community where I live, with white folk. There's a reason why. I don't know the statistics, but around here, I'm not suspecting the average lifespan so long. I see a lot of teenagers pushing carriages. And I'm not saying it shouldn't be that way, because there's also this like incredible pride in this area. I grew up on the other side of the mountain, now I live here. So I'm not necessarily part of the community, even though I live here. I'm sure people recognize me because I got this fucking thing. But it's complicated. And I just don't want to condemn people. I don't want to condemn people for their choices. And I was an unexpected child. My mom conceived me when I was 18 down in Stockbridge, Mass. A famous town for a few reasons. And I was born in Nashua. When she was 19. And there were some close to her who floated the idea of abortion. So I might not have been. I'll be honest, sometimes I wonder if that wouldn't have been better. Since I'm here, I'd like to do some good. But, like I said, I've been coming around, and it's like, it's a different philosophical question on the whole abortion issue. I'm not trying to say should there or shouldn't there be abortion. What I'm trying to say is, if you do or don't believe in abortion, either way, what about the suffocating the crying child? And it doesn't have to be Jew and Nazi. It can be, Stalin and whatever. It can be, in America with, I think the worst thing we're doing, probably the best people that we want in the world are mostly all these Mexicans coming across the border. Never mind, we spend all this money on the border between the United States and Mexico, and we're trying to build this wall. We could spend a third of the money building factories in Mexico, so that when the Mexicans and the Guatemalans and everybody else comes north, and I only say Guatemalans because I worked on this job one time where these Guatemalans were building this stone wall. They were Guatemalans who were iffy as far as green card shit goes, who were made their way up to New Jersey. And this New Jersey Italian dude, contractor, got the bid to do this stonework at this job I was doing up around Etna, New Hampshire. And everybody else on the job was like pretty much white, They kept calling them Mexicans. And I asked them one time they didn't have a ride back to the hotel. These dudes had a hard life. They came up from fucking Guatemala to New Jersey. They'd stay in a hotel all week, and on the weekends go back to New Jersey, even though they were from Guatemala. And everybody on our job called them the fucking Mexicans. It's fucking brutal. It's disgusting, man. I remember one day they were coming up asking for water to boil their rice and beans. Literally. I mean, you can't make this shit up. And they were talking to another dude, and he's like, oh, I don't know. So I jumped down from what I'm doing. Hey, what do you need? Not that I'm a great guy, I'm not, but it's like, fuck, man. But anyway, same thing, when immigration comes. When immigration comes to some hotel somewhere where there's 40 people in a few rooms, babies crying. Or in a shipping container. Chinese people being shipped across the ocean in fucking shipping containers. I met a dude once when I was 18. I used to go to Riviera College for like 2 months. And there was this guy I knew, and he was a few years older than me, and he'd spend a few years in the Coast Guard. And he talked about how one time they raided a tanker. And there was like, I can't remember what he said about why they did it, but like, he said there were all these people trying to get into America, and I can't remember where he said they were from. I feel like they were from somewhere in Asia. And he said that like, when they raided the ship, or like, something was fishy about the ship, so they jumped on. And he was down underneath, like in the hull or something. I don't know much about ships, but like down below, and it was like all full of water, and there were all these people like pressed up against the wall of the ship. And he said like he peeled them away from the ship, because they were down there with their guns, and they're like, ugh. And when he peeled them away, he said like they were dead. Didn't know it at the time because they were still standing up, like all pressed together or whatever. And he said when he peeled them away, like their faces and like their skin stuck to the wall. Kind of like if you leave a piece of fruit in a dish for a while and then you pick it up and it's like stuck to the dish. Like that. That he peeled them away and they were stuck to the wall. So there's all these ways where they're all trying to save each other, but then when that baby cries. So what's the right thing to do when that baby cries? Suffocate the baby? What would you do? Pro-life people, I'm just asking you, what would you do? You're pro-life. You're with your church. You're with your church and the enemy comes. Whoever you think your enemy is. So you all go down into the basement to pretend like no one's there. Turn off all the lights. You got guns, yeah, but they got bigger guns and you know it. You know they're going to get you. You know you're outgunned. So you go down and hide. You go in your little bunker. You go in your little survivor fort. But they got bigger guns. They got the hypersonic missiles. They got those razor blade bombs. What are you going to do? What am I going to do? Motherfucker, I'm hiding like a motherfucker. But when that baby cries, that's going to get all of you killed. If you whimper and cower and hide. So you got 10 Nazis upstairs with machine guns. And you got 40 faithful below. 41 with the baby. when that one cries, do you suffocate it to save the 40? Nobody ever outcries against that concept. That's just, that's the way it goes. Yeah, stupid. But that's the same thing you do when you make abortion illegal. Now, I'm not saying you're wrong. It's good that people want abortion to be illegal. Abortion should be illegal. It's just that humanity is not purified. I'm not purified. Chances are pretty good you're not purified. And there are instances or a child being born. This sounds horrible. I know it sounds horrible. But in some cases, a child being born condemns 40 to death. In the same way that when that one baby cries, 40 are condemned to death. Because it sets off a domino effect. I'm not saying that's the way it should be. There's nothing more I want than to see every baby worshipped, every person worshipped in this butcherous world. But until we even worship, work for, praise, pray for the redemption of the broken amongst us, because also derelicts are universally hated, unless they're in a good movie played by someone famous. Then they're adored. I don't know. It's a troubling issue. It's a troubling issue. My prescription. We'll get to it some other time. It's just something to think about. If you hate me for saying these things, I don't blame you. I already hate myself. So we agree on one thing. It's just I can't lie, and I can't just talk about ideals. It's also the fact of the matter. For instance, I'm a vegan, and you eat meat. So to my mind, you're a butcher. But I'm not going to hate you for it. Because if all the animals died in the world, and I was the only animal left, you'd eat me. Perhaps you already want me dead. And I don't blame you for that. Not at all. Someone will come, maybe you, with the answers to these complicated problems. We should have more compassion for the quote-unquote baby killers. If it gets to the point where the abortion is even an option, like you've already failed. You're trying to legislate against the failure you've already made. If you're a Christian, if you're a forgiver, if you're a healer, and you haven't healed already, you've already failed. You can't You can't legislate against spiritual failure. You can't legalize. You can't put into the letter of the law what you failed to do in the spirit of the law, right? I can't. I certainly can't. We're putting all this energy into the letter of the law. And all that energy isn't only not going into the spirit of the law, we're stealing from the spirit of the law to the letter of the law. If we put all that energy that we put into the letter of the law into the spirit of the law, it would be a dead issue. There are certain things that we don't do. Because the spirit of the law is fulfilled in those things. There are certain heinous things collectively we do not do. Because the spirit has been fulfilled in those things. There are certain things we do that don't need to be legislated. Because the Spirit amongst us is fulfilled. The effort we're putting into this legislation is the condemnation of ourselves. We condemn others who do what we don't want them to do. We condemn others for doing what we don't want them to do. But it's a condemnation of us. For not loving enough. Certainly of me. I mean, trust me. Whatever the darkest chasm of hell is, I don't in any way suspect that that's not my fate. We're all too happy and ready to send people to hell, not recognizing that we're supposed to go there and cleanse it and make hell impossible. Hell was not founded at the foundation. Hell is not foundational, and at the omega point, hell will not be. Let's just say a prayer for the mothers. Mothers, we pray for you. Mothers, we pray we become big enough to serve you in your roles. Mothers, we've abandoned you. Some of you at the margins. May we give ourselves to you. Even us, like me. A hypocrite. And to the rest of you hypocrites, may we rise to serve truth. May we serve the truth, even if we're destined for the darkness.